is so good to see you all. Holy moly, this is a crowd. So my name is Jenny Pratt, and I put this shindig on tonight. So if you love it, all me. If you hate it, it's all Carrie Rosso. I am so privileged to be able to say welcome and thank you. You could literally be anywhere tonight, and you chose to be in the Sheldon with 10 people that you've never met and 600 others. And, you know, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and let's just take the next couple hours to just be here. Let's be here. Let's be where our feet are. That said, I would love it if you would not have your cell phones out. It's being recorded, so if your favorite person is on the stage, there's already a video being made, so you don't need to. There's pictures being taken, so you don't need to do that either. So if you could just put your phone away and be here, I think we're going to change the world tonight, or at least ours. I have to tell you, 30 years ago, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these ladies right here, I was in college, don't do that math, and I met this young woman who was a high school senior, and she came to my campus for a tour, and when I tell you that I was smitten, it's an understatement. She blew my mind, and she came to our college, and then she joined my sorority. She became my little sister in the sorority. 30 years later, she started this whole thing in Champaign, Illinois, and here we are in St. Louis, bringing her vision to St. Louis. So Carrie Rosso. Carrie Rosso is the one, and if you get a chance to meet her, I hope that you will take it. I think it looks like we've got folks in seats. When I tell you these ladies are pumped, they are so excited to see you. We've been practicing all afternoon, and I think you're going to have a great evening. So without further ado, I am thrilled to bring you the 2022 That's What She Said St. Louis.
My job instills fear in the hearts of millions. I am a math professor. Now, I'm not here to quiz you. I promise there's no math involved. But I do hope you'll learn something. I want to share with you the characteristics I look for in my dream students, in my favorite students. Now, I know we're not supposed to have favorites, but come on. We all do. My favorite students aren't the ones who get all A's. They aren't the ones who have all the right answers. What I look for are students who show up, pay attention, strive to become better, and push me to be a better educator. I'm excited to share with you that I have found this group of students, and I've been working with them for over 2 years. They may just look a little different than you're expecting. My favorite students are incarcerated. It was a gray January morning when I first arrived at the prison. The moisture in the air brought the cold deeper and deeper into my bones. Was I shivering or was I shaking? I was cold, I was nervous, and I was a little scared. I was willingly entering a place that no one wanted to be, and my first and most pressing concern was that I wouldn't be let in. Had I done everything right to make it through security? Did my outfit pass a strict dress code? I enter the prison under the watchful eye of the guard tower. I am searched and scanned. I sign in, scan my ID, show my ID. I'm handed a body alarm, affectionately called a screamer. Scan my ID again and enter the airlock. I show my ID for a final time and enter the yard. An acre and a half of dry, brittle grass lay before me with snaking sidewalks that appear to have been an afterthought. To the left of me are 4 large cream brick houses with tiny barred windows, each separated by barbed wire and a guard stationed outside each one. In front of me is what appears to be an abandoned strip mall that I later learned contains the cafeteria, library, laundry, GED school, and my final destination, the education wing. I enter my classroom, and I'm being watched through a camera aimed directly at my whiteboard by the CO in the next room. I begin to set up my classroom and learn 21 new names as quickly as possible. Today is the first day of a new semester, and I am normally so excited, but today I was more nervous. This was different. These students were different. But it would take me time to realize not just how truly different, but remarkable they were. My favorite students are incarcerated. In prison, every hour on the hour is movement. The only time incarcerated persons can move about the prison. At 8 a.m., my students came into the classroom boisterously. A group of men aged 26 to 68, all in matching khaki jumpsuits given to them by the DOC, all with a college algebra textbook in hand and excited to meet a new professor. Once I saw their faces, learned their names, got a smile, the nerves were gone and only excitement remained. I was excited to share something I love with others. My favorite students are incarcerated. Outside of prison, I teach at one of the top universities in the United States. I am a math professor. I teach the class that you have to take. You don't want to, you have to. I know this. I'm not naive. So I try my best to make my class as approachable and engaging as possible, doing things I cannot do in prison. We have polynomial division relay races and graphing Olympics. We play factoring bingo. It's okay. But these classes outside of prison, silence, crickets. No questions are being asked. No one answers when I ask the question. Sometimes the silence can be draining. In prison, my classroom is vibrant. It is full of voices sharing connections I had never made before. Everyone has a question they're not afraid to ask. And everyone has an answer that they will shout confidently, even when they're wrong. Outside of prison, I teach some of the most privileged students in America, and my favorite students are incarcerated. My favorite students want to be PhD astronomers, engineers, computer scientists, and poets. My favorite students want to revitalize their neighborhoods, save the planet, and inspire others. My favorite students are incarcerated. In prison, my class is made up of entirely non-traditional students. Some have been in prison since before I was born. Many of them did not graduate high school and completed their GED while incarcerated. This is where I can relate. I did not graduate high school. I dropped out my junior year, got my GED 2 years later, and 3 years later, finally enrolled in college full time. Thank you. Now I, a non-traditional student who was finishing her doctorate, -1, was teaching a class of entirely non-traditional students. This was the first of many classes I would teach in prison. I often get teased that I smile too much when I'm in prison by COs and the students. They're like, "You're too happy." I'm just happy to see some of my favorite people. Since then, a few of my students have been released. I have got to meet them for coffee, watch them grow, and take their knowledge with them. Many of my students have graduated. Some have a date set. They know when they're getting out. I imagine that they are a mixture of nerves and excitement to enter an outside world that has changed around them. But they have changed too. Horace Mann said that education then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is the great equalizer of men. That has never been more true than for my justice-impacted students. This semester, for the first time, I'm teaching in a women's prison. This is the inaugural cohort, meaning that now 100% of women prisons in Missouri have access to quality in-person higher education. Currently, there are over 370 prison education programs across the United States, supporting associate's degrees through master's degrees for incarcerated men and women. The work is not for everyone, but if you'd like to get involved, I'd love to introduce you to my favorite students. Thank you.
I'm also a production assistant. So I really did not think that I needed to prepare for this show tonight. I have done stand-up comedy for 11 years, and I was like, I'll just wing it. And then 2 weeks ago, I was asked to do a guest set at a puppet show. And I thought, it's a puppet show. No one's actually expecting me to be funny. I'll just wing it. And then I bombed. At a puppet show. Did not feel good. So then I thought I should probably prepare. So I thought about a couple stories and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tell the story about the time I drank with the master distiller of Bushmills in Northern Ireland. That's the story I'm gonna tell. And then we had our first rehearsal, and all of these women that are behind me right now, sharing this stage, proceeded to tell the most empowering and heart-wrenching and just breathtaking stories. And I was embarrassed before I even had my chance to talk. So at the very last second, I waited to speak until the very, very end. And at the very last second, I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll weave in some tidbits of my trauma into this drinking story. But it'll be lighthearted and fun. And then I bombed. And it was, in fact, very, very traumatic. So I started writing. And I was writing, and I was writing, and I was writing, and every time I looked at every different story I was writing, it just didn't feel like it was me. Like I have all of these stories, but I didn't have the story. And I was starting to really stress out because it's like a week from the show. So I decided, okay, I'm just gonna like watch the TV, take my mind off things, and I decided to watch the Beatles Get Back documentary on Disney+. And as I'm watching this, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, Kelsey, you're just like the Beatles. Except I'm not four separate musicians with very different personalities. All of these different personalities represent the internal conflict that I'm having trying to decide what story to tell. And George Kelsey is like, tell the story of your trauma, but don't make it corny. And then George Kelsey is like, that's not the story we want to tell at all. And then Ringo Kelsey's like, yeah, that sounds good. And then John Kelsey's like, hey, remember that time we were in a Greek islands on a motorbike and then it died and lemon tree saved us? And then Paul Kelsey was like, no. We're gonna tell the story about our trauma and it's not gonna be corny. And then George Kelsey's like, I don't wanna tell stories anymore, I quit the band. And then Ringo Kelsey was like, hey, I think George Kelsey's upset. We should probably go talk to her. And then I realized, I'm the fucking Beatles. I can do whatever I want. Sorry, Mom, I promised I wouldn't say the F word, and I did. So if you're sitting here thinking, did Kelsey just compare That's What She Said to the iconic Get Back album that the Beatles wrote? The answer is yes. That's what she said. So ultimately, I decided I didn't need to write a new story because I am still living my story every single day. And ultimately, I didn't end up wanting to tell the story of my trauma because my trauma just kind of takes over and goes full Paul McCartney, and then all of the other members of the band have to say, hey, other cool things happen too. So I decided I need to sit back and I need to do some reflecting. So I started going through old journals of mine and reading letters that I had written to myself and stories that I had written to myself. And I saw this really empowered woman that had worked really hard to get where I am today. And I realized that just one story wasn't gonna be the story, that I had to figure out a way to tell a lot of stories because I am a lot of different versions of myself, even though today I'm just Kelsey standing here on the stage. But ultimately, I'm the Kelsey who decided her freshman year to go to Thailand for a semester because it looked like it would be cheaper than living in St. Louis. Plus, it would really piss my dad off. I'm the Kelsey that still thinks she has a chance at playing in the Women's World Cup. I'm the Kelsey whose dream it was to be in Riverdance. And then I find out tonight Riverdance is happening, and I'm standing on a stage the same night as Riverdance. Oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to keep the arms straight. I'm the Kelsey that told her trauma to get to work, and with 4 other women, founded a nonprofit organization that teaches alcohol. We do drink. It teaches sexual assault and harassment prevention training to bars and restaurants all over the city of St. Louis. Thank you. I'm also the Kelsey that used to think that meditating is what happened when you forgot to take your phone to the toilet. I'm also the Kelsey that just like 2 weeks ago made a post on Facebook that was like, you gotta manifest that shit. I'm the Kelsey that just wants to be a good time guarantee. I just want to empower you and lift you up. And if you're not up, I want to make you laugh, and I want to make you cry, and I want to give you everything that you possibly could need. And I'm really happy to be here telling you about all of the different versions of myself. And that ultimately, what it comes down to is that I was given one task, and it was to tell a story. And I wound up telling everyone how I couldn't pick just one story, because I am the Kelsey that is a redheaded stepchild that says, don't tell me what to do. Thank you.
Wasn't that amazing? I am on the stage with some phenomenal, beautiful women, and it is truly an honor. So where are all my Batman roller coaster riders at? Yeah! You ready to take a ride? All right, you better buckle up, put that harness on, and get ready to ride. You ready? All right. Woo! You know, don't you just love the roller coaster ride? All the twists and turns that you have no idea what's gonna happen. You find yourself screaming and holding on to that harness while your feet are just dangling in the air. Isn't that something just so fun? That thrill gets your adrenaline just going, and it's just so exciting. Well, whew. Each time that I have ridden the Batman ride, it takes me back to a point in my life where I couldn't get out the bed. Now, that's what she said. I could not get out the bed. I'm like, what is really going on? Well, if you think about it, what if you woke up and you couldn't feel any movement in your legs? Have you ever thought about it? Well, hold on. We on that Batman ride. Because I woke up and I could not feel any movement in my legs. Truthfully, I thought it was a dream. I really thought that I was dreaming, like, is this really happening? But it wasn't a dream. It was reality. This is the reality that was going on at that moment. So after I arrived at the hospital, I know you didn't think the ride was going to the hospital, did you? We at the hospital. I was being prepped for an immediate surgery, like right away. I was just stunned. What's really going on? Well, I woke up, and when I woke up, there were 2 oversized tanks connected to my abdomen. It was just draining out infection. And that's what could have possibly caused that temporary paralysis. The sounds of those tanks sounded like heavy rain hitting the awnings on a house. That's all I could hear. It was just me and those tanks. So I had to figure out, look here, this is what we gonna have to do. Well, I thought I was kidnapped, honestly, in a Hannibal Lecter movie. Like, what's really going on? Is somebody gonna come out of that closet, the bathroom? What is it? Well, it didn't. After weeks and tests, and the doctors not having any kind of diagnosis, my spirit began to feel down. Like, this is really going on. It's not a joke anymore. When you're all alone for a period of time, your mind begins to wander. Your thoughts can be like, what? What did I do? Why me? Did I do something wrong to someone? Am I being punished? Those thoughts were clearly there. And I said, what did I do to deserve this? After being in the hospital for over a month, the doctor shared some information with me. They explained to me that there was fluid on my spine. And that fluid that was on my spine, that's what was draining out into those tanks. But I really didn't know what that meant. I just knew, okay, well, let's just get it out so I can get out of here and you can go to another patient. But that's not what happened. He explained to me that the spinal tap that they had taken, it revealed that there was a fungus growing up my spine. And that fungus began to come out my nose. And it looked like a cauliflower. But they knew that giving me the medications, hopefully it would decrease the size of what I thought was just a pimple. So guess what? I say, well, you know what? I'm going to put a Band-Aid on it and just keep on moving. So after the medications and the decrease of the pimple, I was like, ooh, well, we got one thing done. They explained to me that I had a very rare disease called coccidiomycosis. I challenge any of you to spell it. So I had to ask, I said, coccidiomycosis, what in the H-E double hockey sticks is that? And they explained that it was a rare disease that is often and common in dry places, like Arizona, where I did live at one point in time. And it's not something that's common here in St. Louis with the weather, the humidity. Okay, we're finding out some things. So here's the explanation that after that was told to me. I was one in so many millions of people that get it in your spine. It's more common in your lungs. So I was like, okay, am I supposed to feel better about that? Am I going to eventually get on up and walk? What are we going to do? Well, the doctor explained that they had talked to colleagues in Arizona. And talking to those colleagues, they came up with a plan. And I'm all for a plan. I'm like, oh yeah, well, let's talk about the plan. So the plan that they came up with is that they would have to remove the bone that was in my back and replace it with rods. Okay, all right. But we're also going to have to remove a bone in your left leg, that scar right there. And we're going to take that bone to stabilize a portion of your spine. Wow, all of that's happening? Okay, we can do this. We can do this. Because at that point, what choice do I have? So I did respond by saying, are you serious? Well, yeah. And I asked, okay, so what's going to happen? Tell me what's my limitations. My limitations are you're not going to be able to ride a roller coaster, and you cannot wear heels. Oh, okay. Wow, that's kind of like a tough pill to swallow, isn't it? So I thought about it. He says, so, and I have one more thing I have to share with you, Marquetta. You're going to have to lay flat in the bed for a couple of weeks or longer. You can't move. You can't get out. The nurses will come in and turn you left to right. And you could move up the bed a little bit, you're about to this level. You can't go all the way up because we're trying to rest your back so that we can prepare you for this surgery. Oh, okay. All right, so now I'm stuck in this bed. I can't move left to right. Oh, I saw all kind of soap operas. Oh, at that point, I'm thinking I can make my own. Well, let's fast forward this story. You guys are like, oh, okay, well, thank you. But, honey, let me tell you, 2 months later, after having 2 spinal surgeries and months of physical therapy and learning how to walk all over again, My hospital stay, it was 5 months, a little bit over that. But you know what? There was nothing more paralyzing in life than the fear of feeling trapped and not be able to put my feet on the floor. So today, not only do I wear heels, yeah, I know what, I can wear some 3-inch heels. Not only do I ride roller coasters, I'm running. What's the next roller coaster my husband and I are gonna get on? And let me tell you one that's really good. The Harry Potter. All right. So you guys know what I'm talking about. Well, let's fast forward. We talked about my nose. I do want to share this. Sometimes in life, Maya Angelou says it's so good. You may forget what someone has said. You may forget what they did, but you're never going to forget how they made you feel. And I say that to say, my husband and I attended a party, and we were at a round table, and it was like 6 other people at the table. So the table sat at least 8 people. So we're sitting down, and I'm sitting next to Miss Fashionetta, that's what I'm gonna call her, because she was dressed really nice, really cute, had everything all together, and of course, friendly on me, hi. And she's like, hi. And I did see her kind of take the napkin, but I wasn't thinking, okay. She took the napkin and got ready to wipe my nose and had the audacity to say to me, you had something on your nose. Now, honey, I don't know you and you don't know me. How do you just invade the space? So Miss Fashion turned into Miss Unfashion. Because you just do not invade people's boundaries. When I say that was fun, that was fun. So it's moments like that that reminds me of how my faith in God have overcome doctors' reports, people with sarcastic comments, people saying what I can't do, because I know what I can do. That has been proven. I also have to say, the scar that's on my nose, yeah, guess what? That's that war wound, and I won that medical battle. Sometime I have found myself feeling a little bit self-conscious about it, and I'll say to my husband or to my family, hey, do you see anything? Well, honey, if you see it, guess what? The battle has been won. So whenever you are in doubt about your capabilities, remember, you can't give up. You have to put one foot in front of the other, and you have to keep moving on your journey. Because I am here to say, you can do it. And you see me, and you heard what I said prior to. So I would like to leave you with my recipe. Faith doesn't make things easy. It makes things possible. In life, your challenges are places to visit, but don't unpack your bags and stay there. The twists and turns of my life have shaped and molded me into the courageous woman that stands before all of you beautiful people tonight. Thank you.
I'm an older one that needs glasses, so we got to get this close so I can actually see what I'm doing. Not too close. There we go. Gotcha. Hello. On a beautiful May morning in 2014, I was standing at my kitchen sink, brushing my teeth, next to my husband of 17 years. I was completely unaware that this was the day that an 8-year journey would begin to unfold. It had been about a month prior that an off-the-cuff comment turned me into Magnum PI. My marriage was unhappy, But was there more going on than I knew? A few hours after rinsing my mouth, I was taking a picture of his truck in her driveway. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you better believe it. Texting him the proof and driving away. You can imagine the rapid-fire emotions that were going through my head as I drove away. It was fierce anger, sobbing sadness. I was kind of relieved, shocked, but always back to anger. But eventually that anger turned into confusion and fear when the reality of what leaving would actually mean. By all accounts, I had a pretty sweet life, well, except for that unhappy part, but, whatever. But it definitely looked good from the outside. Nice house, condo on the beach, freedom to travel, backstage access to all the major entertainment and sporting events. I mean, you get the picture. Leaving meant I would lose everything. That was definitely what I was told by the person who had been lying to me for a decade. I lost sight of what really matters, and my traumatized brain decided to do what it thought it needed to do, and I stayed put and tried to fix my marriage. I'm a little sad to say it took me 3.5 years to ultimately learn that there was a limit to the amount of lies I can handle. I still remember vividly being on the phone, listening to another conversation and story that I knew for a fact was completely false. I'm not sure what it was about that day, but I do remember the moment of clarity hit me hard, and after years of infidelity, emotional and verbal abuse, I knew I had to go. I'm sorry. I floated the idea of separation, hoping we could find a peaceful resolution, but you can believe me, that didn't really go well. So after that conversation, I knew leaving was going to be a covert operation. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my siblings. I only shared my plan with my son, who was all for me leaving his stepdad, and all of 3 friends, and only one of those lived locally. That was it. I felt bad for not telling other people, but I felt it wasn't fair for them to carry my secret, which was really a good thing because it took me 10 months to pull it together. This is the one time that having a spouse that puts you at the bottom of the priority list is a good thing. I made day trips 200 miles away to set up my new life. Woo! The day I finally left, I had spent 24 years with this man and 20 of them married. It was crazy, the feeling of a relief that I felt as I drove away. It was overwhelming and unexpected, like I was able to exhale for the first time after holding my breath for 20 years. I ended up moving to Springfield, Missouri. My son went there to go to school and never came back. Go figure, right? Besides my son, I knew no one there, but luckily, the one local friend that I told, who was there the day I left, who followed me to Springfield and stayed with me for a few days, and she kept me strong. She was also my rock through the whole 10 months. We need our friends. Yeah. Shortly after that, a longtime BFF who lives in Kansas City came down, got me out, got me to buy furniture and accessories to spruce up my little apartment. I just, looking back over the years, I realized that it is the women in my life that saved me. Yeah, and I was also touched by friends who I thought I would lose, the other team, that reached out and gave me words of encouragement, and it made me think, maybe sometimes people actually do see what goes on behind closed doors. I don't know, it was great. I'd always been uncomfortable expressing my faith in my married life. Everything was open to ridicule. So after starting over, I was happy to find my church after just a few visits, and wouldn't you know it, it was full of strong women. I became close with one young woman in particular. She was our women's ministry leader. And she helped me truly discover what I believe and gave me the knowledge that I needed to let go of all the pain and the anger and the hurt. It wasn't instantaneous by any means. We had to work on it. But when the rehashing started in the middle of the night, I knew where to lay it again and again and again. My friendship with her was crucial in discovering that I was okay and that I am enough and I am loved. And that's my face. That journey helped me step up and start to consider the challenge of forgiveness. Yeah, I mean, I found happiness in the absence of lies and rages and stress. I mean, I was very happy, but forgiving, I don't know. I mean, I knew forgiving would be the key to being free. Even so, it took a while, dog with a bone and all that. But finding a social life was also very important. I knew I needed one, so I downloaded and I joined the Meetup app, and I found a group of over 50s who had dinner every Friday night. Yep. Yeah, woo, it was hot. You can believe I was actually pretty scared walking in the first time, but those dinners helped me find more wonderful ladies to call my friends. And these friends had the same battle scars that I've had. And when you share that in common, it creates a quick and true bond. The first summer away was a blast. These friends were dancers, some of them were dancers, and they invited me to go along. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I'll go dancing. Next thing you know, I'm like, holy cannoli, these people can dance. Like, whoa, who knew? Next thing you know, I'm taking dancing lessons and dancing several times in a week. It was great. I was having so much fun meeting all kinds of people, I hardly recognized myself. And when I came back to St. Louis, my friends noticed a difference too. That miserable woman who was living a high-end or higher-end lifestyle was now thriving in a very simple but real life. It was pretty surreal. Speaking of surreal, my divorce took 46 months. Yeah, right? Nearly 4 years. We hashed out agreement after 26, and then COVID. I watched the agreement that I worked so hard for go just poof, gone. Like everyone else, I waited. I didn't know if my agreement would hold or if I would be bankrupt. Honestly, to be completely honest, actually, that was the most humbling part of this entire journey. Once the restrictions lifted, we were back in divorce mode, facing the same lies, the same stall tactics, the same diversions, but with a post-COVID spin on his numbers. I had an extremely smart lawyer, and she saw through it all. We finalized last November. Concessions were made, but I'm completely happy with the outcome. So, yeah, it's all right. So somewhere in that quarantine year, it occurred to me that I was not harboring any ill will towards my now ex and the woman he spent all those years with. Sure, at first, I was so pissed that I was living a life based on decisions that two other people made. I mean, this was not the golden years I had planned, or that I worked for, that I envisioned. I had to make a choice. I could be closed up and bitter, or I could open my heart, learn to be vulnerable, and learn to trust again. That's an easy choice, but it was really hard work to get there. To get there, I had to accept what happened, and I did. And did that and a bunch of other work, which allows me to honestly say, I have forgiven the people who hurt me. I don't really know anything about who they were together or who they are now. And when I really think about it, they didn't steal the golden years I had planned. Those were based on a lie. They were fiction. And I am so, so grateful for that off-the-cuff comment that led me down the path that saved me from living the rest of my life as a miserable lie. My life now looks so different. I'm very happy, I'm very content, and again, very grateful for it all. Still supported by dozens of wonderful women in my life, and I love them all. I mean, seriously, our girlfriend's not the best, right? I just got a whole bunch more, too. Now my life choices are my own, and I did choose to open my heart, to trust again. It isn't easy, but again, what's the alternative? And so far, for the most part, I'm still having a blast.
I'm really excited to be here tonight, honestly. When I look out in the crowd, I just can't help but be happy to see people, community. Yeah, community again in person. You know, this pandemic, it's been hard. I've lost friends and family. Seeing complete strangers struggle across the country. The constant fighting between what people feel is right or wrong and how we work through this pandemic. It's been really hard. I'd say one of the hardest things, though, that I've struggled with the most is my spirituality in all of this. You see, I'm not religious, I don't think, but I'm also not religious. I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in being spiritual, but having all the answers is something I just don't know. Is there a dude hanging out in a golden chair in a place called heaven? Maybe? I don't know. Do I wish it was some version of Dolly Parton playing the banjo to a crowd full of guardian angels? Hell yeah, absolutely. But I do know that as growing up as a child, having someone or something I could talk to about my problems, my hopes, my dreams, my aspirations, it was really important for me as a child. The idea of giving it up to God was always this weight off my shoulders, like I didn't have to figure it all out right now. As a child, being able to not hold the burden of the world on my shoulders, to give it up to something higher, was really helpful for me. And this pandemic, it just has me missing some sort of relationship like that again, that safety, that partnership, and something higher. You see, I was raised Southern Baptist, and as a kid, I took everything literal. I'm talking literal. So when I was told that in order to be saved, I needed to ask Jesus to come live in my heart, I took the assignment really seriously. I grabbed a pen and paper, and I sat down and I mapped out a blueprint of the inside of my heart. I thought, if Jesus is gonna live in my heart, it's gonna be like the most pimped out heart of all the hearts. I mean, I'm talking like velvet curtains from like ceiling to floor. It was so dramatic. 4 stories. He had a master bedroom, a walk-in closet that was like, had all of his different colored robes. He had, like an ensuite bathroom. He also had like a library office combination where he had all of his like religious books. And also a computer where he, would answer his prayer emails. I just remember thinking like, how is he gonna live in anyone else's heart? I mean, my heart is just so amazing. But later my mom sat me down and she was like, it's not that he like literally lives in your heart, but it's the idea that, you accept Jesus. And then I eventually understood the meaning. Jump forward to junior high. Now, I probably don't look old to you. Like, you probably thought I graduated high school just years ago. Insert pause for laughter. Okay. But actually, I grew up in the 90s, the VHS and cassette tape era. Yes. Full House, Growing Pains were like 2 of my favorite shows. And Kirk Cameron, who started Growing Pains, was like such a babe. Like I had just a big crush on Kirk Cameron. The curly hair, just like the looking at the camera kind of thing. So it was no surprise that being raised a Christian, I was into the Left Behind series. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Left Behind series was first a Christian series of books turned into movies starring Kirk Cameron, my love of my life. And it's about the book of Revelations and the end of the world happening and people getting left behind. So if you weren't good and taken to heaven, you got left behind. And it was... those movies were like a doozy. Now, I, for some reason, always thought when I watched those movies that like I was gonna get left behind. I just knew it. I'm like, I'm gonna be one of those people that get left behind. And I don't know why I thought this. I was probably irrational. I was a hypochondriac, but it was just something I feared. One memory that sticks out to me growing up was I was at my house walking around. And it was just my mom and I. We don't have a big house at all. And I remember thinking, where's Mom? I haven't seen her in a while. So I'm like walking around, Mom, where are you? And there was no answer. And this happened for like 20 minutes. I go through every room like twice. So I go back into her bedroom, and all of a sudden, I see her clothes laid out on the bed. Now, the thing about the Left Behind series is that for some reason, when you get taken to heaven, your clothes get left behind, but you go up. And I remember thinking when I was little, like, that makes sense, right? Like, they probably just wear robes. Why do they need clothes in heaven? It made sense at the time. So when I go into my mom's room and I see her clothes laid out on the bed, almost as if she had just left them. I'm talking, they were like perfectly like laid out on the bed. And her shoes were like tousled on the ground. And I remember thinking, holy shit, I've been left behind. I started freaking out, man. I was freaking. And you know, I've always thought I was gonna get left behind, right? So I run through the scenarios in my head. Okay, Sarah, you've thought about this, you've planned this. Do I have access to bank accounts? No. How do I secure money? I don't know. How do I pay for food? Is my brother gone too? I started to think back to like the Boxcar Children's series, if you've read those books, where their parents like leave them or they're abandoned or something, and they have to like go live in a boxcar. They collect soup cans and use them as cups, and they go steal from bakeries. And I thought, I'm gonna be a left behind boxcar kid. That's who I'm gonna be. Safe to say, I actually wasn't left behind. My mom is here tonight in the audience. Heyo! And I should have thought of this, but my mom's just a really stylish lady, and she was just like picking out her clothes for the day and just laying them out on the bed. Let's all talk about her outfit tonight. So let's jump forward. You know, the Left Behind series did leave an imprint on me, but eventually I grew out of being afraid of being left behind, sort of. And I moved on from Kirk Cameron and became slightly obsessed with Meg Ryan. I know that might be a little weird, but I always thought she was drop dead gorgeous and played in the best movies. Two of my favorite movies growing up was You've Got Mail and City... Oh, hey, okay. And City of Angels. Okay. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen You've Got Mail, but for those of you who don't know the movie City of Angels, it's basically about a bunch of angels that live in New York City, and they follow people around. Some are like guardian angels of people, and others, like Nicolas Cage, who also stars in the movie, walks around and just kind of like checks people out. Meg Ryan in the movie is a doctor, and she's working to save lives in the hospital where Nicolas Cage goes because he meets people when they die in the hospital. So honestly, like, this movie is my recap from like 20 years ago, so just bear with me here, okay? In the movie, it's no surprise that Nicolas Cage falls madly in love with Meg Ryan because, let's be honest, she's a total smoke show. But it's weird because Nicolas Cage is like invisible. He's an angel. So Meg Ryan has no clue that this angel is like following her around all day, like in love with her. So he's like looking over her shoulder, checking out her files. He's like smelling her hair, stuff like that. Like, it's really creepy when I say it out loud, but at the time I thought, what a dreamboat. He's so endearing. I just love him so much. Forbidden Love, the tried and true ultimate love story. Now, I remember when I was watching this movie, I remember thinking, like, holy shit, like, what if my guardian angel is like some hot version of Jonathan Taylor Thomas, and they're gonna like fall in love with me? I started to become super aware of everything I was doing. The way I'd brush my teeth and look at myself in the mirror, what I wore to bed. Like, I thought I was like the star of my own movie for weeks, months, years. I just kept thinking, like, what if my guardian angel falls in love with me? And then also, like, what if I accidentally pick my nose in front of them too? So, scary. Still to this day, I sometimes think about how there could be spirits or angels all around me at all times, and then I start to get a little self-conscious again. Going to college actually was a big eye-opener for me. It was a place that I could open up my eyes to more religions, to the idea of questioning my faith, understanding of what I knew, and I started to look at the world on a broader scale. The literal interpretations I took with me as a child began to morph and shape into a better understanding of something higher but less ominous. Over the years, I've grown more confident. I feel connected to more people, community, and what love can mean through the relationships I've gained. It wasn't until recently, when my grandmother passed away, that I started to really think about religion again, about spirituality. You see, she's a diehard Christian and has been her whole life, and that dedication, that love and acceptance of something higher, of something more than herself, I just think that's beautiful, and I want to try to honor that too. I miss that feeling, to be honest with you. She truly believed that when she died, she was going to heaven, and I think that's just beautiful. Last year, I had my second child, and I could have sworn that I felt her presence in that room that night. I get cold chills thinking about it sometimes. It wasn't in some sort of like creepy Nicolas Cage way, but it was like, it felt like love. and it felt like her. I guess spirituality for me is love. It's the memories we hold. It's the kindness we extend. It's the meaning of something beyond just me and beyond us. This is why I never know how to explain what do I believe or are you religious? I guess I know how I feel. I feel love, I feel joy, I feel pain, I feel nervousness, I feel empathy for others, and I think that being spiritual or religious will always be a constant journey for me, and that's okay, as long as I just don't get left behind.
Hello. Hi. Welcome back. Hi, Lucy. So, what did you think? Right? Do you want some more? Okay. That's what she said. So, there's like 3 things that I need to do before we get to this next act, okay? The first one is, holy cannoli, do we have some people to thank? This set behind us, where's Emily? There's Emily. So Emily Cobbler's company, Stage to Move. This is Stage to Move. If you need help staging your home to move, or they're actually doing some really cool helping you restage a room, Emily and her team crush it every time, and I want you to call them. Where is Marianne Sarenko? There she is. Marianne and the Kranzberg Foundation are just, when you think about St. Louis, don't you think about the Kranzberg Arts Foundation? I know that I do. Marianne and the foundation are sponsoring our after party, and from the bottom of my heart, I can't thank them enough. So Sophie's is popping and going to be ready to see you. So stop by Sophie's if you'd like. Your ticket is your entrance. But the other thing you need to know is that friends, come on now. The other thing you need to know is that this program is your guide to organizations and businesses that support women. So go see them. If you need a florist, if you need a realtor, if you need a bank, if you need financial advice, the people in this program said yes to women and said yes to something that they had never seen before. And I hope that when you go see them, you tell them that She Said sent you so that they'll sponsor us next year. Because that's right, we'll be back. We'll be back. So She Said St. Louis 2023. How is it that we're already talking about 23? Same bat time, same bat channel. We will see you on March 4th next year as well. If you know speakers, I want to meet them. If you know sponsors, I want to talk to them. I also need to thank the 2 people that are sitting right over there, the people that call me mom and wife. That's not the same person. When I came home and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing, the Waniac didn't laugh me out of the room. And he said, well, of course, sounds great. Actually, I think he said, did you talk to me about this? And I also have to thank a group of people that I think are kind of over here. This is my side hustle. So this isn't what I do day in and day out. I have a real job that pays the mortgage and all of those things. And the folks at the Muni are gracious and kind, and we hope we see all of you at the Theater Under the Stars this summer. But they are just remarkable people and give us the encouragement to do things outside of our real world. And I'm just so thankful for them. So I think that's all the things that I had to say. Oh, I know what I want to do. Everybody scooch in. Pretend like we like it. All right, we'll post that later. You can tag yourself and say you were here for the very first one ever in St. Louis. So, without further ado, your second act of That's What She Said 2022.
Thank you. I have no illusions that my life hasn't been one of privilege. I grew up in safe suburban Cleveland, Ohio, have parents who supported me every step of my life. My mom surprised me tonight from Florida. My education, it was paid for, and I've always had choices that I know so many people don't. Yet, contentment doesn't come with privilege. Many times it's the women who appear to have it all together who are really struggling on the inside. We learn to become masters at concealing because life throws so many rules and stories at us. Or maybe it's the stories that we're telling ourselves that carry the most weight. Oftentimes, these burdensome tales prevent us from doing things and saying things or sharing things. Sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to feel things. I'm 42 now, so I'm learning to get better at this. I'm trying for me, trying for the women around me, and trying for my 3 incredible daughters. So I'm here to share about a time in my life when I was breaking on the inside, and I want to share how that brokenness ultimately led me to my life's work that has provided meaning, clarity, fulfillment, challenges, so many friendships, and many other gifts. I was 28 years old when I had my first daughter. At once, she was the love of my life and the worry of my days. At every turn, I stressed that I was going to drop her or not be enough for her, or worse, not even be around for her. I was a high achiever and a perfectionist by nature. And I also had an important job to do outside of my home. So much to do and so much to prove. I was trying to be this incredible mother, an incredible wife, a charitable do-giver, well put-together woman, and somehow also find time to prioritize things like self-care and nutritious meals, all of the things. I didn't think to lean on many others, because that's not what strong women do, is it? I didn't see a lot of examples of that happening around me. So I took it on. And I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders, pumping my breasts in random locations throughout the day while working through cognitive behavioral therapy to help my brain unlearn a terrible fight or flight pattern it had gotten into the habit of being in. On top of it all, childbirth, that had literally torn me a new one. Amazing. I was breaking, but only on the inside, because that's what we do, isn't it? It's still not really socially acceptable for a new mom, or any woman for that matter, to be walking around without her shit together. And what if I told my friends, or even maybe my family, what I was actually feeling inside? Would I even be good enough to be a mother? So outside, I had it all wrapped up with a bow, like most of the other people around me that I saw. But inside, I was stressed, and I was anxious, and I was not well. And again, I knew I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't have to worry about food on my plate when I got home, or a roof over my head, or a supportive family. But that didn't seem to make the burden feel any smaller to me. In fact, may have even added to it, because I kept thinking to myself, if other people could handle life so well, then who was I not to be? I'm not really sure how long I would have let this stress-filled, miserable time of my life play out, but luck did eventually come my way. One day, I happened upon a book that was apparently waiting for me to open it. I started flipping through the pages, and this book asked a really important question. The question was this: imagine yourself on your deathbed tonight, or maybe it's 50 years from now, and somebody stands and looks you in the eyes and says to you, was your life a complete success? And if the answer to that question is no, what would be the reasons why it wasn't? What would you have wished would have happened to make it a success? This one simple question changed everything for me. It made me realize that I wasn't approaching this life from the correct vantage point. And why? I think, again, society tells us stories and gives us frameworks to operate from, and those stories aren't always based in truth or logic, and they don't always consider a life that's well lived. Part of the story is what plays out when we turn to little girls and compliment them first on their looks, and then ask them to think about what they want to be when they grow up, as if growing up is a destination and a one-stop shop. I don't know about you all, but I'm still growing up, especially right now. Especially now as I stand up here tonight. My early years didn't play out like the story I was taught to live by. I really never knew what I wanted to do. I tried a lot of things as a child. I just changed majors in college. I got fired from my first job. That was the worst job in the world. I wish my old boss was out here somewhere. And all the while the world was continuing to shout at me to just be something, I should have known it was just enough for me to be. So here's how I answered the important question in that book that day. For my life to be a total success, I would need to leave this world better than I found it. I'd need to know I'd change lives for the better, starting with the people that I love the most, the people at home. So it was in that moment I knew I had to change something. My work was great and important, but I wasn't changing anybody's life. So with encouragement from my partner and best friend, whose loving suggestion to stay at home gave me permission just to be, I packed up my potential and transitioned to stay-at-home momdom. Oh, stay-at-home momdom. Another story we tell ourselves and each other. Are we going to be enough if we just stay home? What about work? What are people going to think? I am here to tell you, staying at home is far from work-free living. And it comes with just as it comes with just as much guilt as that which working mothers feel. I loved my life at home, but something was still missing, so I began to fill it. This time, I filled it well. Instead of doing what society told me I should do, I started doing whatever the hell I damn well wanted to. My strong desire to protect the health of those I love most drew me more and more towards the field of environmental health. I couldn't believe how few people around me were knowledgeable about the impact our environment has on us and the choices that we make, how that impacts our health. So I began taking classes. I earned my certificate in plant-based nutrition. I went to lectures. I befriended those I admired and could learn from. Sometimes this would mean that I'd be the only non-professional in a sea of professionals doing and learning things for their job, but I didn't care. I was moving towards the things that fascinated and the things that lit me up inside. I recently heard Abby Wambach speak, and she talked about going towards the things that make you warm. I loved that, and I understood that, and that is what I did for those 8 years that I wasn't working. Then one summer, my time came, and I realized it was time for me to share how all these small changes I'd been learning about could impact the health of so many. And people around me, they'd figured it out too. I was getting questions like, hey, maybe you should write a book. Would you ever consider consulting? Maybe you should do some speaking. Signs were everywhere, and I felt that it would be a little selfish not to work to serve others with the knowledge that I had. And in sharing, I would really be working towards the answer to those questions in the book and leaving the world better than I found it. and changing lives for the better. So it was a win-win. So I started, one foot in front of the other, and no huge plans, no title I was trying to earn, no limits to what I would do or how I would do it. I started. It was a blog at first, sharing and partnering with people and brands that I believed in. Then I joined a company dedicated to changing the personal care industry for the better. I joined for the discount. I just really loved the shampoo. And I was never going to sell products to people that I cared about, even though I knew they were really significantly safer for their health. No way. Society had told me all about that story too, and I didn't want any part of it until I did. Here's what I found. What I found is that I had finally reached a time in my life where I knew exactly what I wanted to share with the world, and I knew exactly why. I knew that if it wasn't me, it might not be anyone. And I knew that I had to start doing more things that scared me and not giving a shit, sorry, Mom, what society was telling me, because I had played into those stories for far too much of my life, and that wasn't for me anymore. If I was ever going to start fulfilling my life's purpose, there was no time for me to be self-conscious or to shrink myself so other people could feel comfortable. So I began, and I was wobbly at first, but I was doing it anyway. And then I started asking amazing people to join me. Some of them are here tonight. Because I realized that going alone, I could not go as far, go have as much fun. And they began, and they were wobbly too. But this time, I was there to support them in a way that corporate America doesn't teach us. And then this team that I had begun to assemble grew, and we continue to grow. And today I lead a team of nearly 500 people. Together, we serve communities across all 50 states and Canada. We're writing a new chapter on business that society hasn't told women is available or possible. We are what happens when people come together with a common vision for the same mission, when we value health, a life well lived, and each other, when we decide to lean into each other's strengths to compensate for areas where we may be personally weak, and when we are inclusive of everyone from every background, not despite our differences, but because of our humanness. On this dream team, we advocate from our living rooms and our cars while we're nursing babies or waiting in carpool lines, alongside corporate careers or stay-at-home momdom. We advocate on our own time and in our own ways, and we advocate all the way to Capitol Hill, where once again, I will be in a few weeks meeting with congressional leaders to talk to them about why our health matters and what they can do about it. We work for time freedom and financial freedom and mind freedom. In almost 7 years, I'm almost 7 years into this chapter. And most days, it's really hard for me to distinguish between work and pleasure because my work really is a pleasure. And it all began because I was able to stop listening to external stories and start writing my own. When I started taking better care of myself, I was able to take better care of my family, then make a bigger difference in my community, empowering other people to do the same, and together we're making a lasting impact on the world. You all are so nice. I still have a lot of work to do, work on myself and work for this planet, and who knows what's going to be next for me, but here is my hope. My hope is that our sons recognize the power of coming together in partnership alongside women the way my husband has come alongside me. That when we work together to empower one another, all of us and all of society can benefit. That women, we're not simply enablers, we're powerful, capable, and we're transformative. And I hope that my daughters and all of our daughters grow up knowing a different story, a story that they're enough just the way they are, a story that anything is possible, a story that it's okay to share their stories, even the hard parts, because there's no shame in our challenges. And sometimes, oftentimes, it's our dullest moments that give us our greatest sparkle.
Dynamically transforming trailblazer. That is who I am. Me. But let me tell you, that is not who I've always been. Hell no. But when I actually listen to my coaches and my inner core and put those words to work, I flat out made the decision to become unapologetically unafraid of anybody and to stand in my own power. It took a very long time. At Rung, I heard words like resilient. You are a force and powerful. And I thought these people were absolutely nuts. Later, I realized that everything that I needed for my transformation was in the intersection of these words that these strangers were speaking over and into my life. Do you understand that words have power? I put those words deep into my heart. I let them pierce every part of my soul because my heart, it was infected, and my soul, it didn't have any light. I was in desperate need of triage. But what I really needed was Lupe. I needed therapy. I had baggage in my trunk, and I had to get it cleaned out. I had always avoided cleaning out my own trunk, and I loved to give that responsibility to somebody else. But there was nobody who was going to throw out my garbage but me. So I had to pull up on Carmen, completely and fully. So I did. It was nasty. It was messy. I mean, how the hell do you navigate your own reflection? I never thought myself attractive or beautiful. I've always thought myself less than average and very unworthy. As I got to the root, I realized I felt abandoned. My mother was a black goddess. She was a Nubian queen, but she also was a heroin addict who died when I was 5 years old. Much of that time, it's a blur. I don't know what was real and what was fake. Growing up, there was never any choices in my life, constantly directives. From the age of 5 to 12, I stayed in a very abusive home. I wasn't smart. I had no self-esteem. I lacked all forms of social engagement, yet I was put in school with no support. And I pondered what the hell that school knew about me or my needs. I was mocked, ridiculed, and exiled. In 2022, you call it cancel culture. My inability to read and write on grade level, it was not supported within the school or at home. At school, there was no resources, but they always managed to send a note home that was met with physical force and verbal degradation. From the age of 12 to 16, I was in and out of residential care facilities. From 16 to 18, I was house hopping. And by my 18th birthday, I was in Macomb, Illinois, pregnant, ultimately having an abortion, one of two, which is something that I still regret to this day. I spent the next 10 years in that little town hustling, big time. I left with 2 degrees, a lot of street knowledge, and a son that would soon be diagnosed with autism. My life was riddled with trauma, toxic relationships, and abuse. Adults had failed me. The light did not shine. And through therapy, I learned I didn't love myself. I didn't love myself because I did not know myself. But I really, really thought I did. But the only thing that I knew was what was deposited into me by others, and that was not my truth. The power of words. I missed everything that I needed to actually become Carmen when I was growing up. I never learned anything that was required to walk this life out. I remember talking to my therapist about the younger versions of me and how hurt each one of those people were. And I remember telling her and myself that I could no longer allow the 21-year-old Carmen, the drug dealer, to be the protector of the 5 and the 11-year-old Carmen. The 21-year-old Carmen was reckless. She was fearless, and she was out of control. I've been releasing her into the woman that I am today so I can continue with the greatest work of my life. The only way that I was going to be able to activate my bigger dreams for myself and my community was to get the help that I needed. And I had to get that help now. So I did the work. I learned how to support myself and how to give myself the things that I needed. I need light. I need color. I need access to the outside. I need to play in dirt. I need mirrors. I need affirmation. So I give those things to myself, do you hear me? Throughout the day, repetitively and unapologetically. Talking through what I was experiencing was transforming for me because I realized that in most cases, I was Carmen's own worst enemy. So I pivoted how I was perceiving things and people. This allowed me to show up authentically and to secure my current opportunity while building my own company, Becoming Carmen. I believe that we are a community that is interconnected. I believe we all need each other, and we must stop giving only parts of ourselves to each other. We must give ourselves wholly and completely if we are ever going to create the communities that we desire. I believe in the power of stranger interactions for the manifestation of miracles, dreams, and opportunities. I believe in the authentic story. I believe in supporting people right where they are and how they are. I believe that every single person is connected for a bigger dream. Here we go. Pull up, people. Hear me. Open up. Create access. And be placeholders for the people that are around you. Who is in your intersection? And who's at your table? Pause. Who have you pushed out of your intersection? And who have you pushed away from your table? Why did you push them away? And why did you cast them out? It is imperative that as a community, we shift. There are amazing people that are just amazing, and they need access points, and you got them. They are conduits for the future. If you give them space and understand, they're not finna harm you. We are guarded in our community. We have barricades up and systems to help people like me. But let me tell you something. Listen to me carefully. Your systems don't work. Until you center what is important to an ordinary person, you will never, ever have an extraordinary outcome. And that is coming from a dynamically transforming trailblazer. And this is a public service announcement.
April 19th, 2010 was a typical Monday. I had just left my job and was making a phone call. I mistakenly hit my son's number, and the call went like this. "Oh, hi, Brandon. I didn't mean to call you. You're washing your truck? I'll let you go then. Have a good day. I love you." Fast forward 4 hours, it's 5 o'clock, and I was home with a full house cooking dinner for our family when there was a knock at the door. I opened the door to two men wearing uniforms with the letters SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics, on their shirts. The next thing I knew, I was being driven to the hospital because my 19-year-old son, who I had just talked to earlier, had shot himself in the head in his dorm at Lindenwood University. I rushed into the hospital waiting room as the doctor was walking in. He said they tried to revive him 3 times, but that he had passed away 5 minutes ago. The waiting room, full of family and close friends, was wailing. I am a woman of strong faith, and all I could say was, God is in control. The hallway was lined with college kids, and I hugged each one of them. It was unbearable to see my other 4 children lost in their pain. My husband was out of town in a remote location in the desert for his job and was still being located by authorities. I was surrounded by people, but I felt totally alone. A clipboard was quickly put in front of me to sign because Brandon was an organ donor and the process had to be completed. And then I had to decide if I was going to go into his room to see him laying there in his bloody clothes with a bullet in his head. But my oldest son and my brother went in on my behalf and carried that memory forever. I still wrestle with that today. We were all invited to Lindenwood. As I stood at Brandon's vigil in front of the dorm, I just found myself wondering, whose kid is this? And where is his family? It was very surreal. The following week was a constant flurry of kids in and out of my house and an unending loop of questions. I did start putting it together that Brandon did have a plan. He gave things away like his favorite sunglasses, his clothes, and an old cell phone to our youngest son, who was in 7th grade. In retrospect, we could see how he had said his goodbyes. When I found his bucket list while cleaning out a drawer, I was a little surprised to find skydiving at the top. but it began to make sense why he made what felt like a random trip to go skydiving that week before he died, and then gathered the family together to watch the video the night before his death. As I ironed the clothes I picked out for him for the funeral, I had no idea of the shock I was in, but it was quickly taking its rightful place. There were 1,800 people at his visitation. I stood at the casket for hours and hours, comforting parents, and found myself saying over and over, we are called to be the best stewards we can of our children, but ultimately they belong to God. A week before he died, Brandon and I went for what I thought was one of our normal long drives to talk. He said his exciting life felt mundane. I shared all the wisdom I could for what seemed normal for anyone from time to time. He excelled on all his high school and college volleyball teams, was on the senior prom court, had a landscaping business, was the life of the party, surrounded by friends. But at some point, the darkness must have been all-consuming, and why he didn't want to breathe anymore, we will never know. Looking for answers, I went to get his clothes from the police department. I retrieved all 33 pages from that night's medical records from the hospital. Could there be a note missed in his pocket? Or a clue in the details written from beginning to end? Nothing. There were no answers, only more questions. Why did he have the one brand new tennis shoe on? And Brandon, why did you go to KFC and leave half-eaten food? It took a long time to get past the moments of what it must have felt like to be in my son's head, taking the steps to his dorm bathroom as the music was blaring, the last place he would see. The rawness of the grief spiraled, and this new normal was hard to accept, but life went on. My daughter got married, our granddaughter was born, and my husband moved 5 hours away to take care of his dad, who had cancer and lost his battle. 3 years into our loss, the shock finally began to thaw. Life was regaining color, and I became an open book as I fully realized each of our days are numbered. I have seen so many women lost in their suffering, giving way to defeat, and getting stuck in time. I have been writing and speaking into the hearts of moms and kids, especially on my son's Remembrance Facebook page, but found myself adding more and more notes about how to live in such deep sorrow. There are many entries in that page, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. I'm grateful to help others find a little bit of joy and the strength to have purpose. One day I was on the phone with a friend, and I opened up a back door curtain to see a sunflower looking right at me. Brandon and I planted many a sunflower seed trying to grow a good one, and that moment reminded me that God's mercies are new every morning. I have learned to do the next thing, step outside my box, and get to the next day. Every year, we give in memory of Brandon's birthday and his homegoing day. We randomly pay for lunches, especially if it's a young man with a landscaping logo on his shirt. We hand out gift cards at Lindenwood randomly with notes of encouragement, and we give to the boys' high school volleyball team today. We walk for suicide awareness and look to do many random acts of kindness. It's been 11 years, but life that was turned upside down has now found its way right side up. As an organ donor, Brandon made it possible for 2 babies to live. Because they received his pulmonary arteries, 2 people can walk again, and his skin was donated to kids in Haiti. That too brings such great joy. Every day I still ask, how do I live without you? But I have a semicolon tattoo to remind me that my story isn't over and that his suffering and mine will not be wasted. The memories of Brandon's death have left a scar that will never go away. As I sat under that dreaded blue tent where my son's body was laid to rest, it felt like part of me was buried too. But the joy of the Lord has always been my strength. And while this story might be over this evening, I pray we can all walk on our journey together and that the glorious blue skies overtake the darkness of whatever valley you may walk in. Life is worth living, so go light your world.
Hello. Yes. Whew. Who would have ever thought that a little girl named Rhoda, who grew up in a low-income housing project and who lived through a series of traumatic experiences, would have ever worked her way up from the projects to the boardroom? Whew. Look at me. Look at me. No one, not even I, could have imagined that I would be the head of talent management at American Ag Credit, the 3rd largest bank in the farm credit system, the subject matter expert for leading their talent strategy. I like to think that I am the best example of what I do in my profession. And what exactly does a talent expert do? Glad you asked. I help people to reach their full potential, to become the very best version of themselves, to tap into and leverage talent that they didn't even know they had. Further, I teach leaders in organizations how to do the very same thing, which leads to high-performing teams. It leads to elevated employee engagement. It leads to increased employee retention and ultimately positive organizational financial performance. At American Ag Credit, we service more than 10,000 clients, ensuring that our farmers and other food and agriculture experts have the finances they need to produce food to feed the world. And I'm so very proud. I'm proud to contribute to such a mission. See, growing up, the oldest of 4 girls, raised by a single mom, there will be many days when we sometimes did not even know where our next meal would come from. For 2 years, I went to high school hungry. And we know high school is hard all by itself, so I didn't need that added stress. But having no food at home to pack for lunch or money to buy lunch, it only added to the stressors of being in school, particularly being in private high school. You know, St. Louis is big on private high schools, private schools in general. I begged my mother to send me to Lutheran North because I had gone to a private grade school, and that's where all my grade school friends were going. What I did not know is that I will be the only student in the whole high school who took 3 bi-state buses to get to school from the inner city of St. Louis. and that my friends from grade school would make new friends. And in high school, that I would often be made fun of and mocked for living in the ghetto. Their words, not mine. It was hard trying to learn while being hungry all day, but it was only temporary until I was old enough to get a job. And guess where I ended up working? Burger King. Where you can have it your way. The Whopper became my friend. And fast forward to current day, here I am working in an organization who is contributing to feeding the world. Life has a way of coming full circle. I have experienced a lot of traumas in my life. I mean, situations that sound like they could be a Netflix series. And some of them very well could be. I'm wondering, is Tyler Perry in the audience? Because I did invite him. These situations that I've experienced, they're events that lead post-traumatic stress, events that have the potential to leave many emotional scars, events that sometimes are very hard to even think about. So we opt to suppress them. And events that most people, quite frankly, they don't even make it out alive. Someone once asked me, Rhoda, what motivates you? That person is in the audience. I remember thinking to myself, whew, feels like a loaded question. It's pretty deep. Take a seat. The truth is, it was a combination of not wanting to ever have to go back and live in the projects in an environment where one had to dodge bullets, witness murders, watch my mom being beat by my then stepfather, being made fun of for living where I did, being called ugly, and carrying the load of feeling like I had to provide for my mother and 3 little sisters. And yes, sadly, often having thoughts of suicide because I did not love myself and thought others didn't either. These experiences, they were traumatic, and yes, they left many scars, but I am in awe that I'm here to tell the story. The short answer to that question, Rhoda, what motivates you, is this: survival. That's it. At the time that question was posed to me, my main motivation was to survive. And because of that deep desire to survive, I refused to let trauma win. Speaking of winning, I have a reputation for not only wanting to see others win, but helping them to do so. My intentions show up in how I lead, how I mentor, how I support, how I encourage, and how I coach others. I once led a training department at a large healthcare organization here in St. Louis with a team of 35 individuals, and within 5 years, I had promoted 22 of them to higher positions, and many of them have gone on to be very successful, and some are in the audience tonight. I've had so many opportunities to impact and touch the lives of others in the work I do and by serving and leading others. I saw it and I continue to see it as an honor and a great responsibility to lead others. How we treat people at work or outside of work leaves an impression on them. I am constantly asking myself, what impression did I leave them with? How did they experience me? My ultimate goal is to give people the Rhoda experience. The Rhoda experience. I bet you all are wondering, what's that? Hopefully for those in the audience who know me, know exactly what I'm talking about, and hopefully by the end of my story, you will have experienced it. I learned many things by growing up in the hood, and one of them was how to survive, and the other was how to fight. Tough situations build strong people, and we are all stronger than we know. If I had to describe the Rhoda experience, this is how I would describe it. A breath of authenticity, mixed with genuine and instant warmth, care, and concern for others, laced with words of encouragement and actions to back them up, and sprinkled with intentional and unexpected seeds of kindness. Earlier, I shared that I worked myself up from the projects to the boardroom. It's true. I started my career as a cashier at Barnes Hospital, working in Queenie Tower parking garage on South Kings Highway, and I've held an array of positions from lower level to leadership. The journey from the parking garage to the boardroom wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I'm often asked, how did you get to where you are? And if I had to summarize that, I would say it's 3 primary key things. One is prayer. I practice putting legs on my faith, and I'm not afraid to take risks. The second is people. I met so many individuals who have helped me, who poured into me, and who believed in me, and many of them are here tonight. The third is persistence. I don't give up easy. I recognize that redirection is often disguised as rejection, so I don't allow rejection to discourage me. I perceive rejection as protection. I'm being preserved for something greater to come. The bottom line is, I believed what those people who encouraged me said and what they said about me, and eventually I started to believe in myself. I believe that trauma that I've experienced in life, it prepared me for life's journey. And that's what my story's about, the journey. I guess having made it through a toxemia pregnancy, one that nearly killed me and my unborn son, taught me that nothing is impossible. There was a 50-50 chance that my son would live. There was a high probability that I would need to go on dialysis, and I was temporarily blind for 3 months due to elevated blood pressure from the toxemia. Fortunately, my eyesight returned, my son lived, and I escaped having to have dialysis. Praise God. Remember, I started with, who would have ever thought that a little girl named Rhoda, who grew up in a low-income housing project, would have worked her way up from the projects to the boardroom? I've seen so much. I've been in so many uncommon situations. I've witnessed a murder. I've been hit by a car. I've witnessed my mother in an abusive relationship, and just a multitude of other traumatic experiences. However, as I stated, I refuse to let trauma win. Those things that happened to me was just that. They happened to me, but they do not define me. Thank you. Yes. While the things I've experienced in life were not positive, they did lead to positive outcomes. Therefore, my journey is one of positivity, one of turning trauma into triumph. The truth of the matter is this: we all have a story. We've all dealt with and or experienced some form of trauma, and we do not have to allow our trauma to take the front seat, to win, and we definitely don't have to allow it to define us. We can let our past make us better, not bitter. Repeat. We can let our past make us better, not bitter. Yes. I love inspirational quotes, and one that resonates with my story is this: difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. Without those difficulties, I wouldn't be here today sharing with each of you. So I want to encourage you all to do the same. Let your past make you better, not bitter. Remember that tough situations build strong people, and that you owe it to yourself to become everything you've ever dreamed of being. Thank you all for listening to my story, and guess what? By doing so, you've each now are a part of it. Thank you.
everyone. Hey, we're still here, huh? Y'all are still kicking it. My name is Ashley, and I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. I know I am standing between you and the after party, so let's do this. First of all, let's call out the elephant in the room, the literal elephant. I could have a baby at any moment. Right here on this stage. I had to call it out because I know y'all were thinking it. Watching me over there, was she rubbing her belly? But on that note, is there a doctor in the house? And can we maybe get her in the front row just in case? Now that that's out of the way, but actually still very much in my way, I'm going to take you on a journey to a warm spring day in May of 2012. I was 22, had my first job out of college as a traveling consultant, traveling from university to university to work with collegiate women. In May, I was actually on break visiting home. My sister was 16 at the time, and we ran out to get breakfast or something. We're not quite sure what we were doing, but we know it involved the Golden Arches. When we pulled back into my parents' house, we passed my dad in the alley, drove by, gave him a wave, assumed he was going to work. As we pulled into the house, I saw in my rearview mirror his brake lights, reverse lights, and he pulled right back in behind me. I remember looking at my sister saying, "Oh shit." My dad never really got mad or worked up about anything, so if he was reversing because we did something wrong, it must have been pretty bad. Or maybe he was warning us that our mom was in a bad mood that day, but kind of figured he just would have sent us a warning text. We all got out of our cars, and I just said, "Hey, what's up?" I remember him being very calm, walking up to us and just saying, "Well, girls, I have cancer, but everything's going to be okay." My sister and I were shocked, confused, and what felt like in a stop of time. I didn't ask any questions. We cried, we gave him a hug, but he was so confident that things were fine, I really didn't know what to do. He got back in his car for what, again, I assumed was going to work, later learning he was going to my grandparents' house to tell them. In the beginning of this cancer journey, it really did seem to be going okay. My dad had radiation and chemo, and we made it all a family affair, always getting to have Arby's when he was getting his treatments. A real treat. We probably should have coined curly fries and chemo or something. He responded to radiation well, and for the most part was kicking chemo's ass, while later I learned that was probably just the side he was showing us. That same May of 2012, my uncle, my dad's brother, also was diagnosed with cancer. Not the same type or treatment plan, but it was obviously a lot for our family. My uncle passed away just 4 months later in September, and at that time, it still never crossed my mind that the same thing would happen to my dad. In fact, remember that traveling job I told you about? I went back on the road in August, no concerns, no worries in my mind. What I will never understand is how in the world I never Googled stage 4 lung cancer. I mean, I was, and I still am, the girl running to WebMD if I find a scratch on my arm that I don't remember how I got it, and start planning my funeral for the new skin-eating disease I probably just got. Parts of me wishes that I would have asked more questions, and I would have looked into it more, while other parts knows that my dad wanted us to think all was well. As you've probably picked up what was going to happen way before I ever did, my dad died January 5th of 2013. While he was in and out of the hospital during the holidays and weeks leading up to that day, I was still in shock, and I really didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, I went to the mall the day he died. Can you tell that still weighs on me a lot? I don't even like to go to the mall. I will never understand some of the decisions I made the week leading up to the worst day of my life, and I know that many of us who experience grief often replay those days in our heads over and over. But I'm here to tell you that we cannot keep doing that. I'm fortunate enough to volunteer with an awesome organization here in St. Louis called Annie's Hope, who has taught me much. Yeah, shout out. They've taught me so much about grief and supporting families and children on their grief journeys. I've had many close friends lose parents in their young and young adult years, and it connects us all in such a meaningful way. I'm sure many of you are in the DPC as well. That's what we call the Dead Parents Club, duh. I'm the vice president. We have some other officers here in the crowd tonight. One awesome exercise that I love, and I want to share with all my fellow DPCers and all of you tonight, is making a list of things that you wish your loved one knew, or things that were happening today that you think they really would have enjoyed. So here they are, the top 5 things I need David Hollowell to know today. First things first, the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show. Now, it's silly for me to think that he doesn't know anything about it because honestly, I'm pretty sure he somehow was constructing the show. That's right, my dad was all about Dre, Snoop, Eminem, 50 Cent. In fact, my dad's career was in radio, and when Inda Club was released in 2003, my sister was 7, and he had her record a version of her singing it and would play it on the radio. Just imagine that little girl voice. And it's not your birthday. I'm sure she'll sign autographs. Speaking of the radio ties, the second thing I wish my dad was here for was for podcasts. I have no doubt he'd be running 2 or 3 podcasts of his own. People in my hometown loved when he was on the radio, running shows and segments and commercials. I could see him having a podcast on music, and also one that would be called Things That Make You Say Doy. You know, when you're like walking by somebody, you're driving by someone that's doing something kind of stupid, and you give them a doy, and you keep walking. That would definitely be a show that he would make. For the third thing, I'd like to apologize for some things that have really been on my mind these last 9 years. Now, I know we should all live a life of that hashtag no regrets, but as I mentioned earlier, looking back, I just felt so out of it and not in tune with what was really going on. Like when he was in the hospital, I was pretty freaked out to be in his room. The doctor would always say, "Hey, David, who's all in the room with you today?" and make him go around saying who everyone was. I had this huge fear that there would be this one time when he couldn't remember to say, "My daughter, Ashley." And that fear just ate at me and made me not want to be as present as I should have been. Another day, he was reaching for a button on the bed to help him get more comfortable, and he couldn't quite reach it. He didn't really have the strength to press the button. And he looked at me and said, "Ash, could you help me?" Seems like such a little thing, and something I should have done way before he had to ask me to do it. But it was definitely one of those surreal moments where you see your strong dad needing help. And again, totally freaked me out. That's a scene forever sketched in my mind. Deep down, I know that he knows I wasn't trying to be selfish. In fact, for how much he tried to hide and seem that things were going good in those moments, I'm sure me not always seeing him there at his worst was something he appreciated. But I'd love the chance to apologize and be more present. Number 4, and there's a foot in my rib. It's okay. He's loving it. You never really know how much someone holds a family together until they're gone. I don't mean logistical, financial, organized way, because my mom's a boss, and I know she took care of most of those things when we were growing up, but in a personal relationship way. When someone dies, you talk about how your relationship with that person changes, but you rarely talk about how your relationships with the living continue to change. For my sister and I, we become so much closer. For my mom and I, we continue to work on what our relationship looks like, balancing mother and friendship and long-distance support. But even our extended family relationships have been affected. I now realize how much behind-the-scenes work my dad did to calm people down, help us move on, start that game of Texas Hold'em that would bring the family together, and of course, be hilarious. One of our favorite one-liners at a family holiday was we were at my aunt's for Thanksgiving. She had left some of her medicine out on the counter. My dad was giving her a really hard time, like that should not be out on the counter, put it away. Especially that inappropriate medicine we don't talk about, birth control. And so to make his point, he yells through the house, "Hey, Angie, I ate your Tuesday mint." And that's how my cousin was born. No, that's not true. Family gatherings and dynamics will never be the same, but we're constantly working on new traditions and ways to fill that void. And last but not least, I would be so excited to share with my dad this baby boy coming our way very soon. Obviously, my dad loved us girls. But when my mom was pregnant, he swore if we were boys, both of our names would have been Elvis. Spoiler alert, this baby is not coming out with any blue suede shoes. But my dad would be so excited for a baby boy in the family. In fact, much like the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure he probably had something to do with this. It's crazy to think how he's missed weddings, graduations, and big moves, that my adult friends have never met him, and that his grandson won't either. But I know if we can keep these stories alive and keep up with the list of things to keep him updated on, he will continue to support us in life's big and small moments. I want to be honest with you all. A week ago, this was not the story I was going to share. But these ladies up here, awesome ladies that you've met tonight, encourage us all to share what was most true to us. Sharing my dad's legacy and hopefully helping others not feel so alone on their grief journey is something very important to me. Whenever I would leave the house, he would tell me, remember who you are and who you represent. I huffed and sighed every time he said that, though. He even got the phrase printed on like my first book of checkbooks. It was so embarrassing. Yeah. But it still obviously continues to influence me daily. But hey, if you're interested in my other story and how a waiting room full of dance moms made up a crazy rumor about me when I was in 5th grade, just find me at the after party. Thank you.